Every time I sit here as the facilitator of satsang, I find the space really empty or fresh in a way. And as you join in, as I see the names in front of me, just sitting with your presence, in your presence, something comes up. And what seems like coming as words for you, for me, for us is it's not about you. It's not about me. That's another way of saying it's not personal. Life is not happening for me, to me, because of me, in favor or in opposition of me. Life is simply not about me. Actually, there is no me to begin with. Life is an impersonal flux, movement, appearance, dance of impersonalness itself, which is perceived as duality, as experiencing the whole spectrum of pleasure and pain, of good and evil, of cold and hot, me and the other, friend and enemy, peace and suffering, black and white, male and female, north, south, happy, unhappy, resentment, forgiveness, all of it, all of it is within this whole spectrum of the impersonalness of the flow of life, which is not about me. I am a concept as this me. Me as Gurleen is a concept that is believed in by this body-mind mechanism, by the seeming environment that decided to call this body Gurleen, that took on a bunch of characteristics, strengths, looks, good points, bad points, flaws, perfections, and is being lived by the impersonalness of life itself. And when non-duality teachings point to who am I, or what is here, what is this I that seems to be living this life, that is looking from behind these eyes, that is an endeavor to let the concept be as it is and be able to perceive or notice or be aware of that which took on the concept of this person and seems to be identified with it and living this life as that concept, as that story, as that identity. The story seems to be what is it? that believes itself to be the story. And that it is the you beyond the story. And that you is life, the impersonal life, which is not about you as the story. The story just seems to be as it is, as it evolves, as it degrades, whatever the content of the story seems to be. Flows, is perceived, is experienced within the you that is life itself. So, what is life? You. Who are you? Life. What? There is no separation. What's the difference? The difference seemingly appears as the story is taken to be the real. When the story is real, there is suffering, there is separation, there is seeking. And to resolve this inherent sense of lack, something missing that takes on the form of seeking because something's not okay. So then this seeking takes on the project of finding what is missing and attaining it. And you, as the impersonal life, all throughout, is beyond and experiencing this seeming story of seeking and gaining and letting go and identifying all of it. There's nothing wrong with the story. We don't need to get rid of the story. Life as it is wouldn't be possible without the story. Life might look something totally different if the story wasn't as it is. So it's not about dissolving the story, it's about resolving the story as recognizing it as a story and not reality. The story in itself lacks that which you are. And hence that inherent existential sense of unworthiness or lack has to be there within the story for you as the person to be not at rest until there is a recognition of what is beyond the story. And then the story can come in alignment with the recognition, and the seeming sense of lack seemingly dissolves. So life is not about you. There is no you. And the word you that I use here is the you within the story. And when I say you are life itself, now that you is synonymous to life. The vast, unfathomable flow of life. that is aware of the speaking happening, of the listening happening, of the interpretation happening, thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations, the environment where the body might be sitting in. It is aware of all of that. And yet, it is awareness itself. It's not something, it just is. It is. It is you. And this recognition doesn't need any gymnastics, spiritual disciplines, the art of detachment, the art of living, the art of dying, any purification practices. They're all beautiful in themselves and they all serve a purpose depending on where the process is unfolding and how and what it needs. For you to be aware of yourself, there is no effort, no gymnastics, nothing is needed. It is the most natural. It's not even a recognition. It's just here. This here-ness, this you-ness, this I-ness, whatever word you give to label it, being this, it becomes clear that it cannot be labeled. It cannot be known. What is it? Whatever might be said to answer that question would just be another concept. You already are what you are seeking for. There already is no separation. And hence, there is no distance between you and you. So, what would be the point of a path to self realization when there is no distance, when there is no separation? You already are the self that the seeking seems to be happening to realize. Whether it's realized or not, you're already the self. The realization is again a concept for the you in the story. When it is said that life is not about you, for the character in the story, that might be the biggest disaster, the most depressing and disappointing news ever. It's like, what's the point of life if it's not about me? If me doing anything doesn't affect anything, if I'm not able to change anything in my flow of life, if I'm not able to make it better, then what's the point of living? And the same announcement that life is not about you, when heard from the space, the identitylessness of that you are, it's the most beautiful music. It's the essence of freedom. Life is not about me. So now I can just relax, get all this imagined weight off my shoulders, and carry on. There is no goal. There is no need to achieve or to prove anything to myself, to the world, to God. I already am. And that's freedom. Many a times a question is asked that sitting in satsang or sitting in powerful presence, this is recognized, this is confirmed. And after a while, maybe a moment later, when we go on about with our lives, it's forgotten. And the old seeking mechanism or suffering mechanism appears to take the center stage of the experience again. So the question, very valid question that comes, that how to remember it, or how to live from there, or how to not forget it. And as that question is asked very diligently, it is already forgotten that the one that is asking the question is already identified with the story. Whether anything is spoken, whether anything is confirmed, whether anything changes or remains the same, whether I evolve in a better human being or whether I remain the same, whether the circumstance improves or worsens, whether I feel at peace or whether I feel restless. I already am that. The wisdom teachings use the screen analogy, so the movie screen and the movie playing on the screen. It's a very valid analogy to what this experiencing happens to be. So whether a horror movie is playing on the screen, or a comedy movie, or a romantic movie, or a motivational movie, the screen remains untouched, and yet the movie could not play without the screen. The movie itself is made of the screen. If the character, the human that we see on the screen is not there, it's the screen, the stuff that the human, the character, all the scenes are made of, is the stuff of the screen. Just in this moment, letting all the content of experience, whatever I might be feeling, whatever might have happened just before I sat here for the satsang, whatever I have to do after the satsang, just letting it all be there. Is it possible to loosen the grip onto that content? And as the grip loosens, the loosening itself can be experienced as the resting within you that is beyond this content. And there might be a automatic or compulsive movement to grab out again to the content, or to try to hold on to this resting, which is another movement of the content. Not trying to stop it, not trying to hold on to it, letting the stopping and holding on, whatever might be happening, to just allow, just let it happen. Let it happen. Even letting the not letting it happen, happen. Letting the questions arise, letting them dissolve, whatever might be happening in this moment. What if everything is allowed and there is no need to maneuver or navigate or control any of this? If emotions arise, what if everything is allowed? What if tears are allowed? Laughing is allowed. Shouting is allowed. Lying down and going to sleep is allowed. Getting bored is allowed. All of it, whatever might be appearing in this moment, it is appearing as it is. And there is no need for me to try and make it any different, better or worse. And there is no need for me to believe that any of that appearances mean anything about me, because life is not about me. What if they're just appearing impersonally? They may come and appear with a story from the past, or an imagination from the future, or an interpretation of something that happened or is happening or can happen in the future. So it may come with the clothing of that memory or imagination about the story of the person that I am. What if even then, however believable and true and reasonable it seems to be, what if it still doesn't mean anything about me? And as there is an openness to entertain that thought experiment, that being experiment with the arisings of one's own experience, it can be confirmed in this moment again and again until it doesn't need to be confirmed anymore. That all of this is impersonal. However personal it may seem to be. And as it is seen, recognized in one's own experience that is the case, that results in the okayness, the inherent yesness to that you are already. Because then the content cannot grab onto you, because it is seen to be impersonal. It is seen to be there not for me, not because of me. It's just there, just like the light is on and I may turn off the switch or turn on the switch, but it's just impersonal. It's like the sun and moon, sun setting, moon rising, and then sun rising again and the moon disappearing. It's not personal. It's just natural. Nature unfolding, life unfolding, you and I unfolding. And within this unfolding includes the identification with the story. So that restricted feeling, that seeking mechanism, that pain, that suffering is also allowed within the unfolding that you are. And the efforts to resolve that seeking, suffering, pain is also allowed. The surrendering to that seeking, suffering, and pain, and not putting in any efforts to resolve it, is also allowed. And it again doesn't mean that one movement is better than the other movement. It's just a movement. So just rest away. And resting doesn't mean that there are no thoughts, there are no emotions, there is no movement. Resting just means that it's all okay. It's not about me. I already am. And from that, the whole dance is allowed. So there's nothing to do, nothing to gain, nothing to achieve, nothing to let go of, nothing to realize, nothing to be. There's just nothing. And this nothingness is what you are, is all there is. This is what the whole content and shenanigan of happy and sad and the whole spectrum of duality that is experienced, including the one that experiences it, is made of. And all these words can be used as a pointer to just really naturally being able to see it and confirm it. And yet, all these words are a lie. There's no truth in any of these words. So, the pursuit of finding the truth is also a story, is also a lie, an illusion. The label truth in itself, the weight that this label carries, like the word God, the label is heavy duty, but there is no truth. And if there is a truth, try putting it into words. Because as it gets labeled or described or communicated, there's the lie again. So, what is truth? Nothing. And even this nothing can be discarded. There is really no ground to stand on, nothing to hold on to, that I, as the seeker identity, can really grab onto and say, ha, the pursuit is over. There is no pursuit to begin with, and there is no ground to stand on. There is no result that can make this pursuit feel like, yes, I've reached the peak and I can put the flag down. So there's nothing that can be heard here or can be taken back with oneself. And remembering those words, they mean nothing. The very concept of meaning is also a story. Because the one that is out there to trying to understand the meaning or to live a meaningful version of life is also within the story. Who are you? Coming back to the screen analogy, you are the movie, you are the screen, you are the audience, you are the auditorium, and you're everything outside of that. And you're none of it. And even this is a concept. And once the concepts are seen to be for what they are, which is concepts and not the truth, they can be accepted back again in the capacity of however they serve this impersonal flow of life. But now these concepts, however holy or evil they may be, however accurate or inaccurate they may be, can be utilized as concepts and not as something that is to be proven to be true or that has to defend its accuracy or inaccuracy, because that sting in itself that took these concepts as the reality and needed to protect these beliefs as reality is absent. So I can still sit as the audience and enjoy the movie and cry on an emotional scene and laugh away on a comedy scene and shout away in a horror scene. And yet there is a knowing it's a movie. I feel to open the space for any comments or questions, anything that you guys would feel to share. So feel free to raise your electronic hand and I can unmute you. It doesn't have to be a question or a comment. If you even just want to say hi, that will be awesome.
Yeah, hi, Gurli.
Hi, Sudhir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Great.
Sorry, I have a question actually.
Sure.
So, uh, is it enough to know that the thoughts which we have, it is not of us, like it is not mine or the story is not of mine. So, is means the understanding that uh, it is not mine. Is it? Is it that means? Is it that or? And I have another question like how to know oneness. Means I have seen many videos on non-duality, and I have seen some of them telling like they are able to feel oneness with a tree or feel oneness with entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to have clarity on that.
Mm. Thank you for your question. Yeah, so the understanding or the recognition that the thoughts are not mine, they're just arising of their own accord, is a beautiful start, I guess. It's about what is being pointed here is that the one that understands that, can that also be recognized as part of the story? So the need to understand and the one that seemingly understands that the thoughts are not mine. So this mineness and not mineness who does it belong to? And the one that is going to feel good from getting an answer that, yes, that is the understanding. And then something can go like, hoof. What is that? And if it is really possible to see if that there is a distance between you and that, the one that needs to understand. And that gap in itself is the very understanding that Sudhir is looking for. When Sudhir himself is seen to be the movie on the screen, by the screen. But yes, if it is visible, if it is perceivable that the thoughts are not yours and they're impersonal and just arising of their own mechanism somehow, I believe you're on the right track of the trackless track. And then your second question on how to experience the oneness. It's a very valid question, and a question of many, I'm sure. I had that question at one point, how to experience this oneness that everybody keeps talking about as the very pinnacle of non-duality or self-realization. So there are many ways to answer that question. And actually, how to experience the oneness, there is no how to that. The very apperception of yourself as you are results in the oneness perception. So if there really was a recognition of the one that is looking from behind these eyes, not the person, but there is perception, perceiving itself happening beyond this human mechanism. So as that recognition becomes available, it may also become evident that this body is within that perceiving itself, and that perceiving is what I am. And as the identity lands within that perceiving itself, and there is a disidentification from me as Gurleen, as this human woman person, everything, this computer screen right in front of me as Gurleen, but this computer screen, the me, is all somehow within that I am. So the oneness experience that you're talking about is really just being able to rest into the awareness aspect of yourself And as that happens, that oneness experience is a byproduct of that. It's not the goal of that, it's the byproduct of that resting into the awareness aspect of yourself that is, you can say, behind or beyond or deeper than this human experience that we seem to be living. I guess you're.
Yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Do you suggest any practice?
Whatever practice feels restful to your system, even if that may include a structured, disciplined practice. So, mantras, breathing, walking in the nature, whatever rings your bell, basically, is the practice to do. It's not about, at least in this system, that's not how it happened. So it's not about maintaining a discipline. It's about really following your flow, however that appears to be. And if your system is more bhakti style, so feel free to implement a practice based on that, or whatever. If it's more jnana style, then reading or listening to satsangs or having discussions like these might be a good practice. Or just if you're more meditation inclined system, then just sitting and focusing on your breath, or however, whatever technique of meditation supports your endeavor, I would say, is valuable. But there is no practice to reach where you already are. That remains the one concept that I point to again and again. So feel free to do whatever practice. However, this recognition of oneness, as we can label it, is not a result of a practice. It may seem that way, but once that recognition dawns upon itself, it is clear and it is known that nothing can cause it, that there is no cause of it. But in the meanwhile, practices do seem to help.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining. Who are you? You're one in a few. There's nothing new about it. And once that is known, phew. And what's the value of this? Phew. What is its value? Nothing. As this impersonal unfolding that you are, as life itself, there's no value to anything that is said here, anything that comes as a result of what we call self-realization. It's all a story, like a river flowing. What is the value of the river flowing to the ocean? The river may dry up on its way, or it may fall in the ocean. What difference does it make to the ocean? And yet, each drop that falls into the ocean from the river becomes the ocean itself. And it's not that it becomes the ocean, it always is the ocean. It's all the water. Whether it dries up before even reaching the ocean, it still was the ocean. So, what's the value of all this? The concept of value itself, just like the meaning. The concept of meaning, the concept of purpose, the concept of value is also just in the story. And having come to see it for oneself, then all these concepts can be played with and honored and applied, but not as the purpose of life, because you are already life. There is no purpose to that you are already. But then they become the dance moves on the dance floor that you're dancing on. So dance away. Why not? Because it's impersonal. It has nothing to do with me. We have a question from Tarun. How do I still live my normal life while realizing all this? That is a very valid question, actually. Again, recognizing that the how comes from the one that needs to make the storyline different than what it is. If that is recognized within your system, Tarun, then the how itself will dissolve. However, practically speaking, there may seem to be an inclination towards just sitting alone, not having to engage in the way that we used to engage in life like before, when this realization is going on. And that may seem too controversial to the old mechanism, because or to the people around us that are used to us being a certain way. So it's just a matter of recognizing or balancing the act of living the normal life and realizing all this, as you said. Sometimes it depends on the flow of life. Sometimes all you need is just a 5-minute bathroom break to zone out from the flow of life and marinate into this you-ness that you're recognizing and getting going with the flow of life as it is. And inevitably and slowly, maybe, and maybe not slowly, but inevitably, you'll find that as the grounding deepens within your own recognition more and more, the flow of life will evolve accordingly. So the normal definition, the definition of the word normal life for you may evolve also. And as a result of that, the different aspects of life, maybe for many people, it's like the job they do, the relationships they have, the place they live in, depending on what aspects of your flow of life seem that they need to be readjusted, and slowly, gradually, or suddenly, they can evolve according to the new normal that is from the ground of your recognition. So until then, the how may remain. And until then it's just about finding a balance between dedicating or spending some time as you feel to resting within this recognition that has happened for you. And all the while knowing that the how is coming from the story itself, not that you are already. You're very welcome. Thank you for asking. So yes, it is very important also in a way to find the groove between the practical life and the marination into your own self that may require seclusion, or even in a way, practically looking at it, zoning out of the practical living for a while. Maybe it is temporary, or it may last for many years, depending on the process that you seem to be living impersonally in this flow of life. So yes, it does become crucial almost to find that balance between maintaining our family or paying our bills and still resting as that. And in the beginning, it may seem like two different aspects to maintain, which may seem like a lot of work. I want to meditate, or I want to just be alone, but there is this office meeting that I have to go to. So it may seem like a contradiction to resting in yourself and living a normal life. It is very possible, and there is a phase of that. And as the resting in yourself is honored more and more, which is again not a personal decision that you may take, it's not a discipline that is implemented, it's just a natural choice that happens. And more resting within yourself just happens to be the natural choice, just like drinking water when you're thirsty. So it's as natural as that. And as that happens more and more, and as you are more available to yourself as yourself, then that office meeting is just like brushing your teeth. You don't have to lose yourself to brush your teeth. So the office meetings or the conversation with a challenging relationship may not draw you out from that rest that seems to be an effort in the beginning. And that is when it's not two anymore. And that's the non-duality of it all, experientially. So beautiful question. And also depending, like when we talk specifically about a certain aspect of life or a certain seeming obstacle that happens to appear with the movement of resting within oneself, then we can definitely talk about dissecting that movement and see how it flowers into a resolution, a New Year resolution. A new life resolution. Again, no value. So, not forgetting that it's all a concept, all a lie, and yet all valid and all allowed. It seems like I'm going to end this here on this beautiful note. Thank you so much for joining. And I do feel to request, as this is ending, if you feel to support the message and the efforts that go into setting all this up and spending time on the platform Gurleen Happening, please do consider donating. So if you visit any of the social media platforms, there is a Linktree link that you have, and the PayPal link is right there. So feel free to donate if that's something that arises for you. And I'm going to see you next Sunday, same time, same place. I love you all because I and you are not two. Thank you for joining.